You're making more money, and somehow you feel poorer. Not on paper, in your body. Like your raise came with a hidden invoice and you're the one paying it in stress. Because the weirdest part about getting promoted isn't the new title. It's the moment you realize your paycheck went up and your life got tighter. The very next week, your calendar fills up like someone spilled ink on it. You're eating lunch out of a plastic container at 3:47 p.m., standing up, answering Slack with one hand and picking something off your shirt with the other. And that same day, your phone lights up with a bank notification that's supposed to feel like progress, but it just feels like, cool, don't mess this up. Then the grown-up stuff starts showing up. Not luxury, not yachts, just penalties. The car starts making that sound you pretend not to hear. Your dentist suddenly has concerns. Your apartment renewal email hits with that cheerful tone that basically translates to pay more or move. And because you're busier now, you do the thing that makes sense in the moment. You pay for convenience, delivery, rideshare, the quicker option, the thing that stops the bleeding today. And the scary part, none of that feels like upgrading your life. It feels like damage control. Sound familiar? So here's the mystery. Why does earning more money so often create more anxiety, not less? Why do you feel like you're finally doing well while your savings still refuses to grow? And why do promotions so often become the exact thing that keeps people living paycheck to paycheck? Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 patterns that create what I call the promotion trap. Pattern 1 hits first and feels normal. Pattern 2 is the one that quietly locks your baseline in. And pattern 3 is the trap, because it runs automatically when you're exhausted. This is where the math gets brutal. And if you miss that last one, you'll spend years thinking you have an income problem when you actually have something worse. Eventually, this comes down to one simple buffer system shift. I'll show you exactly how. But first, you need to see why this keeps happening. But it gets worse. My name's Ben, and I spend way too much time thinking about the moment people level up and somehow end up more financially fragile than they were before. Because the system doesn't just pay you more, it quietly changes the rules around you. It pays you in stress first, cash later. That's not an accident. Your job starts demanding a version of you that has less time, less energy, and fewer calm decisions. Your life starts requiring a version of you that looks more stable on paper. And your money gets assigned new responsibilities before you ever get to touch it. That's why the raise doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a test you didn't study for. So, here's where we're going. First, the pattern that turns a promotion into a schedule you can't breathe in. Then the pattern that turns more income into more mandatory payments. And then we'll hit the third pattern, the one nobody notices until they're already stuck because it hides inside the way you react when you're depleted. And once you see it, you'll understand why just budget harder is basically telling a drowning person to swim with better technique. 2 months after the promotion, you're in a meeting where someone says, "Can you just own this going forward?" And you say yes, because that's what the promoted version of you does. And this is where it gets personal. Then you open your laptop later that night and realize owning it means your brain is now a 24/7 customer support line. You're not working more hours on paper. You're just never fully off. Even in bed, you're doing that thing where you check your email real quick, like it's not going to cost you sleep. But that's not even the expensive part. And then the spending shifts in a way that's almost invisible. You stop doing the annoying little maintenance things that used to keep your life cheap. The haircut turns into the "I don't have time to wait" haircut. The oil change turns into "I'll do it next weekend." The next weekend never comes. And then your car hands you a surprise light on the dashboard at 7:12 a.m. when you're already late, and now you're paying the today price, not the planned price. The social pressure gets weirder too. Your friend group doesn't say, "Congrats, now please spend more." They don't have to. It's implied. You're invited to the nicer dinner because you're doing well now. Someone suggests a weekend trip because you can swing it. And you can, technically. You just feel it in your chest when you hit confirm, because you know you just traded a future cushion for a present moment. Read that again. The raise shows up as responsibility first, money second. The money part arrives late, after the calendar, the expectations, and the adult problems have already claimed their seats. Pattern 1. Time to money swap. Mistakes get expensive. Here's how it works. When you have more time, you can fix problems with effort. When you have less time, you fix problems with money. Read that again. Missed a deadline, you pay for help. Too tired to meal prep, you pay for speed. Too slammed to compare options, you pay the first option. And none of it feels like treating yourself. It feels like plugging leaks in a boat while someone keeps handing you new buckets. And here's the mechanism most people miss. The promotion quietly swaps your currency. Before, your main currency was time. You could shop around. You could wait. You could DIY. You could recover from small hits because you had slack. After, your main currency becomes reliability. Being reachable. Being the person who doesn't drop balls. Which sounds great until you realize reliability requires backup plans. And backup plans cost money. That's the first pattern. Your raise gets eaten by the price of staying functional. And just so we're clear, if you're doing this, you're not bad with money. You're running a life that's priced for someone with more time than you have. Now, mini win, because I'm not going to make you sit through 20 minutes of diagnosis with no handholds. Here's one rule that can start giving you money back this week. Convenience only gets to exist with a trigger. Not when I feel like it, not when I deserve it. A trigger, like delivery only if you're sick, traveling, or it's a true late-night emergency. Everything else is just your calendar sending the bill to your bank account. You see it. And if a finance bro tells you just track your spending, cool. Track your exhaustion too, because exhaustion is the thing making the purchases. That's the scam. But that's not even the expensive part, because pattern 1 sets up pattern 2, and pattern 2 doesn't ask permission. It drafts your new income into recurring obligations. Pattern 2, baseline draft, recurring obligations. Here's how it works. You get promoted, and within a few weeks, you're not just doing your job, you're managing your job. You're managing other people's work. You're managing visibility. So, you do the grown-up thing and you start optimizing your life, which is a polite way of saying you start converting chaos into subscriptions and fixed costs. Your phone becomes a control panel, a meal plan because you can't think at night, a cleaning service because Saturday is now catch-up day, a nicer phone plan because you can't drop calls anymore, a laptop upgrade because you can't afford it to freeze during a presentation. None of these feel like splurges. They feel like seatbelts. And then one day you open your bank app and you realize something creepy. Your raise didn't increase your freedom. It increased your minimum operating cost. Not because you're reckless, because you're trying to stay afloat in a life that got louder. And once your life has more must-pay items, your money stops being a tool and turns into a deadline. You're not asking, what do I want to do with this? You're asking, what do I have to cover before I can breathe? That's a totally different financial universe. Here's what it changes, fast. Your tolerance for risk drops. You stop taking chances that could actually make you wealthier, switching roles, negotiating harder, taking a short-term hit for a long-term gain, because now you have more things that can't miss. You also stop letting problems be small. A small problem becomes an emergency because your schedule won't allow small. So you pay to make it go away fast. That's not irresponsibility, that's survival behavior. Hard turn, that's not lifestyle inflation, that's liability inflation. And there's another layer people miss. Promotions don't just add obligations, they add friction to your decision-making. When you're tired, every choice becomes a tax. So you pick the default, the easiest option, the one-click checkout, the yes to the group dinner because you don't have the energy to be the complicated person. Now let me make this painfully concrete. Pick a random week. Open your bank app, not to judge yourself, just to observe. Monday, you meant to cook, but you got stuck late, so dinner becomes whatever is fastest. Tuesday, you forgot the one ingredient, so you pay the I'm not going back out fee. Wednesday, you're fried, so you outsource one more thing. Thursday, you say yes to something social because saying no feels like more work than going. And then Friday hits. and you're staring at a list of charges that don't look like luxuries. They look like coping. You didn't lose control. You were trying to keep the machine running. And this is where it gets personal. The promoted version of you is supposed to look stable. So you start protecting the image. You don't want to be the person who suddenly can't make the trip. You don't want to admit you're stretched. You don't want your boss to see you sweating the small stuff. So instead of saying, I can't, you quietly say, I'll figure it out. And your bank account becomes the place where you figure it out. You see it? Once your monthly baseline rises, your raise becomes pre-spent. It's assigned before it arrives, which means the promotion didn't make you richer, it made you more fragile. That's pattern 2. Your income gets drafted into a baseline that keeps demanding to be fed. And now we go to the one that really keeps people broke, because pattern 3 is where the system stops needing your permission. It just waits until you're tired. Pattern 3, rescue mode, exhaustion spending. Here's how it works. The most expensive part of this whole thing isn't the subscriptions. It's what they do to your behavior when you're depleted. The shift happens faster than you'd expect. You stop treating the promotion like a reward, and you start treating it like a machine you're operating. You're tired, you're behind, and your brain starts buying speed the same way it buys coffee, automatically. Not because you're weak, because your environment is designed to monetize your fatigue. That's not a bug, that's a feature. Now, once you see that, something flips. Not in a motivational poster way, in a Tuesday at 8:40 p.m. way. First change, you stop using your bank account as a shock absorber for your calendar. Like you're sitting in the parking lot outside a grocery store and you're about to do the usual thing, open an app, pay the I'm exhausted fee, and call it being responsible. But instead you go, nope, this is me trying to buy my way out of a schedule problem. And you walk inside, you grab the boring stuff, you leave. It's not glamorous, it's quiet, and it works. Second change, you start defending your baseline like it's your job, not your lifestyle, your baseline. The stuff that becomes permanent if you're not paying attention. So when your phone dies and the store clerk is already sliding the newest model toward you like it's inevitable, you don't panic buy. You replace the battery, or you buy the not fancy one, because you're not trying to look stable, you're trying to stay liquid. That's a totally different mindset. Third change, you build friction on purpose so your tired brain can't sabotage you. You delete the one-tap checkout. You turn off the saved card. You put a sticky note on your laptop that says, convenience is not free. So when it's late and you're about to do the easy thing, you have to feel the decision again. That tiny speed bump saves you more than any budgeting app ever will. Read that again. Fourth change, you stop saying yes with your credit card. Your friend texts, we're doing the nice place, you in? And instead of that chest-tightening sure followed by financial cleanup later, you say, I'm going to pass tonight. Not apologizing, not over-explaining, just passing. And the wild part? The world doesn't end. Your image survives. Your bank account stops bleeding in secret. Hard turn. That's not discipline. That's reclaiming control from an environment that profits when you're depleted. And here's what you get back immediately: brain space. You stop flinching when your car makes a noise. You stop refreshing your bank app like it's a mood ring. You stop doing that thing where every quick reminder email feels like an incoming bill. You become harder to trap because you're not operating at the edge anymore. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool, but how do I do that without turning my life into misery? Good, because there is a simple buffer system shift that makes this sustainable without becoming a monk. And that's what we're doing next. And yeah, quick note, if you're listening to this and you feel personally attacked, good. That means it's accurate. If you want more of the antidote, not motivation, subscribe. Not for vibes, for counter-programming. Now, the objection you're probably feeling is, cool, so the solution is, I just become a different person while I'm already drowning? Fair, because the promotion trap isn't beaten with willpower. Willpower is what you use when you have slack, and the whole problem is you don't have slack. The good news is you don't need a personality transplant. You need a system that makes the promoted version of you harder to exploit. Checkpoint. We've named the patterns, now we install the fix. This is the buffer system shift, the one that turns the raise back into freedom. Here it is. You stop using your checking account as the buffer, and you build a separate shock absorber on purpose. Not an investment account, not a retirement someday thing. A boring, ugly buffer that exists for one job: catching real life so your credit card doesn't have to. Week 1, you do 3 concrete moves. First, you create a dedicated buffer account and you nickname it something that makes you hesitate. Do not touch, not for vibes, whatever. The name matters because tired you is a liar. Second, you set an automatic transfer for the day after payday, small enough that you won't fix it later. Start with $25 a paycheck. Yes, that's annoying. That's the point. It's a vote for future you. Third, you pick one convenience leak to cap with a rule, not a feeling. Something visible, like delivery only if I'm sick or traveling, or work lunches are packed Monday to Thursday. A rule beats negotiation when you're exhausted. Now, the math of achievability, because your brain needs proof. That $25 is basically one forgettable purchase you don't remember 2 days later. Do it consistently, and in a month, you've got enough to turn a surprise bill from a crisis into an inconvenience. In a few months, you stop flinching when the car makes a noise. That's not saving, that's buying back your nervous system. Then the progression kicks in. The first milestone isn't a big emergency fund. It's the first time something goes wrong and you don't need to shuffle money, float it on a card, or do that weird mental math at the gas pump. After that, you earn a superpower. You can say no faster. Because when your baseline is defended and your buffer is real, "I'll figure it out" stops being your default personality. It becomes an actual choice. And yeah, this takes effort. It's not aesthetic, it's not fun. But most people have more room than they think. It's just currently being burned on exhaustion decisions. The difference usually comes down to one thing: whether your system protects you on your worst Tuesday or only works on your best Sunday. So, there you have it. The promotion trap isn't about you being bad with money. It's about your raise getting drafted into higher stakes, higher minimums, and constant rescue mode before you ever feel richer. Most people think the hardest part is making more. They're wrong. The hardest part is keeping your life cheap enough that your promotion actually buys you options instead of buying you a nicer cage. If you're in this right now, calendar packed, brain fried, checking your bank app like it's a heartbeat monitor, don't panic. Start boring. Open the separate buffer. Automate a small transfer the day after payday, and pick one convenience leak you're going to cap with a rule, not a vibe. Because the point isn't to be disciplined. The point is to stop using your spending as a life support machine for a schedule that's trying to kill you. And here's the payoff to that mystery from the beginning: why making more money can feel worse. Because the promotion didn't raise your lifestyle, it raised the consequences. So your body experiences the raise as pressure, not progress. Build the buffer, and the pressure drops first, before the wealth shows up. You see it? Memorable rule to keep: don't use your raise to look stable. Use your raise to become unkillable. If this helped you see your situation clearly, subscribe. I make videos for the promoted version of you who's tired of doing well and still feeling broke.